All right, buckle up, everybody, because we're about to go deep on a topic that I am so excited about, alpha females.
Ooh, yes.
And we are going to try to decode what makes these powerful women tick, you know?
Absolutely.
We've got two really interesting sources that we're going to be pulling from today. Understanding alpha females and their social power, and understanding alpha females types and social dynamics. And you know what's fascinating is that it turns out there isn't just like one kind of alpha female.
Right.
Like you say alpha female and you think of like one very specific type of woman, but it's so much more diverse than that.
Yeah, the sources highlight a whole bunch of different, like, alpha female archetypes, and they each kind of have their own unique way of wielding their power, you know?
Okay.
It's like they've each got, like, their own signature move.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me more about these signature moves. Like, what kind of alphas are we talking about here?
Well, one that really kind of stands out is the sexual alpha female.
Okay.
And she really understands the power of her sexuality and uses it strategically. And it's not just about getting attention.
Right.
It's about, like, getting things done. Like Marilyn Monroe is a classic example. But what I found really interesting was how the sources were very clear to distinguish her from someone who might just be seeking attention, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's not just about wanting to be looked at. It's about intention.
Yeah.
It's about using all the tools that you have.
Yeah, I mean, like you think of Marilyn Monroe and you think of someone who's very overtly seductive, but it sounds like it's more nuanced than that.
Yeah, it's like a calculated confidence.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
it's not just about, like, being flirty or whatever.
Yeah, it's a power play.
It is, totally, yeah.
Disguised as a lure.
Exactly.
I love it.
And this calculated confidence, you know, kind of plays out in different ways depending on the type of alpha female, right? Like,
Right.
take the butch alpha female, for instance.
Okay.
So she rejects traditional femininity,
Okay.
maybe even, like, embraces traditionally masculine traits.
Mhm.
Like, think of Uma Thurman's character in Beautiful Girls.
Oh, okay.
The sources actually suggested that this can be really alluring to some men,
Interesting.
particularly men who might be, like, you know, wrestling with their own ideas around traditional gender roles.
Right. It's like she's turning the tables on them.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes you question those boxes that we try to put people in, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, oh, this is how a Warren should be, and this is how a man should be, and this is how you express your sexuality or whatever. It's like, she's like, nope.
Exactly. She's disrupting everything.
Yeah,
And that can be intriguing.
totally.
And then you've got the alpha female.
Okay.
And this is like a woman who operates almost entirely by what the sources called male rules.
Interesting.
So this is really rare,
Yeah.
you know, and you often find it in, like, historical examples, like
Okay.
female military leaders who had to adopt a more, like, masculine approach
Right.
in order to be taken seriously in a male-dominated world.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, how much of what we perceive as alpha is actually dictated by societal expectations, you
Okay.
know? Like, these women had to adapt to survive,
Right, yeah.
not because it was their natural way of being.
Totally.
So fascinating.
It's a great question, and it really gets to the heart of this, right?
Yeah.
Because we think of, like, the alpha female as, like, this loud, you know,
Yeah.
assertive, maybe aggressive.
Right.
But there are also women who are much more subtle, you know, like the feminine alpha.
Okay.
She might not be seeking the spotlight,
Yeah.
but she is still very much in control.
Right.
Often wielding power through, like, a high-quality partner or kind of behind the scenes. You know,
Yeah.
like, think Melania Trump.
Interesting.
Someone who understands how to use her position strategically, but doesn't need to be, like, front and center.
It's like that silent power,
It is, yeah.
that under the radar, you know, getting things done, but not necessarily needing to make a scene.
Yeah, exactly.
So interesting. Okay. So we've got these different expressions of alpha, right?
Yeah.
Some very direct, some more subtle. Is there one that kind of combines both approaches?
There is. The sources describe the ultimate alpha female
Okay.
as someone who kind of embodies a real mix, you know?
Yeah.
So assertiveness, femininity,
Okay.
and a healthy dose of sexual energy.
Okay. All right. Got it.
And Sophia Loren is a great example.
Mm-hmm.
She can be powerful and vulnerable, demanding and alluring.
Interesting.
Even the sources suggest that, you know, this type might be really effective at getting what they want by appearing to need protection
Wow.
when it suits them, you know?
It's like playing 4D chess or something.
Totally.
Wow.
It's like
Okay.
masterclass in adaptability.
Okay, so we've got these women who use sexuality strategically,
Mhm.
the ones who challenge traditional femininity,
Yep.
the ones who kind of work that behind the scenes angle.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other flavors of alpha that we need to know about?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many, like, there's the charming alpha female.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
she might not be the loudest person in the room,
Right.
but she has this incredible ability to connect with people and
Oh.
build relationships.
Right.
And she doesn't have to, like, force her way into leadership.
Yeah.
People are just drawn to her.
Right.
She understands that social intelligence is its own form of power.
I think we all know a woman like that, like
Mhm.
just lights up a room and makes everyone feel seen. It's subtle, but it's so powerful.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then you've got, like, the behind-the-curtain mistress of puppets.
Ooh, I like this one.
So she might appear deferential on the surface,
Oh, hey.
but she is subtly controlling the strings,
Interesting.
often through, like, a powerful man, think Cleopatra, Josephine.
Wow.
They understood the power of influence and how to leverage relationships.
Okay, my mind is blown. This is so much more complex than I initially thought.
It really is.
So we've got all these different shapes and sizes of alpha females.
Mm-hmm.
But I am curious, are they all driven by the same things?
It's a great question.
Is it all ambition and, social climbing?
Not necessarily. I mean, while some alphas are definitely driven by, like, success,
Yeah.
recognition, the corner office,
Mm-hmm.
others are more focused on making a difference.
Okay.
Take the driven alpha female, for example.
Okay.
She's all about goals, achievements,
Mhm.
often even putting her personal life on hold
Right.
to achieve her dreams. Think Oprah, Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
These women, they lead movements, they build empires, and they do it all while challenging societal expectations.
Right. It's not always about personal gain.
No.
It can be about a larger purpose.
You can't.
Like a vision for a better world.
Totally.
I love that.
And then there's the pussy power alpha female.
Oh.
This is where things get, like, super interesting.
Okay.
The sources described her as someone who really embraces feminist ideals,
Mm-hmm.
often with, like, a touch of resentment towards a male-dominated world.
Yeah.
She might even use her sexuality in, like, a more aggressive way,
Okay.
almost like as a statement of
It's
independence.
So it's like reclaiming that power.
Yeah, totally.
Pushing back against those traditional narratives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see how that could be both empowering and also controversial.
Totally, yeah.
So we've got all these different archetypes,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's important to remember that not everyone who seems powerful is actually like a healthy leader.
Right, exactly.
What about those who maybe use aggression to mask their own insecurities?
Yeah, that's where the abrasive fake alpha comes in.
Okay.
So she might seem powerful initially,
Mm-hmm.
but that aggression often stems from, like, a place of insecurity
Right.
and poor social skills.
Okay.
The sources use Tyra Banks as an example
Okay.
in America's Next Top Model.
Yeah.
While she's certainly in charge, you can say her approach was maybe bullying,
Right.
unsustainable, right?
So true alpha power isn't about like intimidation
Uh,
or putting others down. It's about using that influence to lift people up.
exactly.
Okay. I'm officially hooked. I need to know more.
Good.
So now that we've kind of laid out the who of alpha females,
Mm-hmm.
I'm dying to know the how. Like, how do these women actually exert their power?
Yeah.
Is it all boardroom takeovers and, power suits?
Well, you might be surprised. The sources actually really emphasize that. Female power dynamics often look very different from the more overt hierarchical kind of displays
Right.
that we associate with, male power.
Yeah.
It's often about subtle cues, social inclusion, or exclusion, wielding influence through relationships, alliances.
So it's less about like commanding a room
Right.
and more about like orchestrating the dynamics.
It's like a chess game,
Yes.
but with social capital instead of pawns.
I love that analogy. Okay.
And one of the most fascinating things that the sources talk about is, like, this thing called the shunning game. And it's this subtle but incredibly effective way of controlling a group. It can be as simple as, like, excluding someone from a conversation
right.
or withholding approval,
That's so interesting and kind of scary.
Yeah, it's like it's a silent weapon
Yeah.
that can be used to reinforce hierarchies.
Totally.
And it highlights the fact that power isn't always about what you say.
Right.
It's about what you don't say.
It's about those unspoken rules.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of unspoken rules, the sources actually analyzed this video clip from Mad Men,
Oh, yes.
which is a show all about power dynamics,
Totally.
to illustrate how much can be communicated without saying a word.
Right.
Do you want to, break down that scene for us?
Absolutely. It's a great example of how much information we actually pick up subconsciously.
Yeah.
Through body language, tone of voice, even just like where someone is standing in a room.
Right.
So this scene involves, it really is like a whole secret language going on underneath these interactions.
Yeah, it's like a little intimidating. It can make you feel like you're walking through a minefield.
Totally.
Like I'm missing all these cues.
It's true.
How can we even start to make sense of it all?
Well, I think one of the best places to start is to pay attention to the dynamics in your own social groups.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed like how certain women just effortlessly command attention?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they kind of subtly influence the direction of conversations?
Yeah, definitely.
Or maybe there's even someone who's not in like a formal leadership position,
Right.
but they seem to be setting the unspoken rules of the group.
I can think of a couple people that definitely fit that description.
Exactly.
But I guess my question is, if we can start to identify these alphas in our own lives, does that mean we can figure out our own role?
That's such a good question.
Like, are we the alpha?
Right.
Or are we more like a supporting player in this whole ecosystem?
That's a great way to put it. And I think it gets to the heart of why understanding these dynamics is so crucial. Because once you recognize those patterns, you can make more conscious choices about how you navigate your social world.
Okay.
Like, do you naturally gravitate towards leadership roles?
Right.
Or do you prefer a more collaborative approach? Are you drawn to that alpha energy, or does it totally overwhelm you?
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer.
Right.
It's about self-awareness, figuring out what feels authentic to you.
So we shouldn't be trying to force ourselves into a certain mold.
Yeah.
It's more about understanding where our natural strengths and preferences kind of fit into this whole social ecosystem.
Totally.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Good.
But what happens when these alpha dynamics start to get, I don't know, a little messy? Like, what if there's competition for the top spot? Or maybe someone starts using their alpha status to manipulate others?
Oh, yeah, that's when things can definitely get complicated.
Right.
Remember how the sources talked about that shunning game and how it can be a tool for social control? Well, those tactics aren't always employed for good.
Right.
So it's important to be able to spot the difference between a healthy expression of leadership and someone who's using their power to undermine or control others.
So a true alpha female uses her influence to empower those around her.
Exactly.
Not to tear them down.
Yes.
Okay, so how do we spot those red flags? Those subtle put-downs or those exclusionary tactics? That manipulation disguised as leadership. And if we see those behaviors, what can we do about it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
I mean, do we confront them head on? Do we try to outmaneuver them? Do we just kind of quietly distance ourselves?
Yeah.
These are all valid options. And the best approach, honestly, really depends on the specific situation and your comfort level.
Right.
Sometimes, a direct conversation can be helpful, especially if the person's open to feedback and self-reflection. But other times, it might be wiser to just set boundaries, limit your interactions. Honestly, sometimes the healthiest choice is to walk away.
Yeah.
You can't change someone who isn't willing to change themselves.
That's so true.
Right.
It's like we have all these strategies at our disposal, but knowing which one to use depends on the battlefield.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
It really is strategic.
It is.
This whole social dynamics thing is so fascinating.
It is. And there's another layer here to think about.
Okay.
And that is how societal expectations influence the perception of alpha females. Remember how the sources highlighted the double standard women often face when it comes to being assertive?
Oh, yeah.
It's a real phenomenon.
Definitely.
And it can create this really tricky tightrope walk.
Yeah.
For women who are trying to express their power authentically.
It's like they're damned if they do and damned if they don't.
Yes.
Like too assertive and you're labeled aggressive, bossy, too passive, and you're seen as weak or indecisive.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about individual choices.
Right.
It's about challenging those deep-seated societal norms that limit how women can express their power.
I mean, we need to create space
With that.
for a wider range of female leadership styles.
Absolutely.
It's not just about being, aggressive or like that classic image of an alpha.
Great
It's
point.
about embracing strength and vulnerability,
Yes.
assertiveness and empathy.
I love that.
There's not just one right way
There's
to be
no
a powerful woman.
wrong.
It's about celebrating the diversity of approaches,
Yes.
whether it's leading from the front, influencing behind the scenes, building those powerful alliances.
It's so
It's
good.
recognizing that what works for one woman might not work for another, and that's okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
We don't all have to fit in the same box.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole exploration so exciting. It's not just about understanding alpha females.
Right.
It's about redefining what female leadership can look like
Yes.
in the 21st century.
I love that.
It's about empowering women to embrace their strengths, challenge the status quo, and create a world where they can lead authentically and without apology.
What a beautiful vision.
Right.
It's so inspiring.
It is.
To think about all the different ways that women can make their mark on the world.
Yes.
But, we've talked a lot about
Mm-hmm.
identifying and understanding alpha females.
Mm-hmm.
But what if someone listening is thinking, hey, maybe I'm the alpha in my circle?
That's great.
What now?
That's such a great question. And it leads us to the next phase of our exploration,
Okay.
because recognizing that potential is just the first step.
Right.
The real journey begins when you start to consciously wield that power, not just for personal gain,
Right.
but to create positive change.
So it's not just about being an alpha. It's about being a good alpha.
Yes.
It's about understanding the responsibility that comes with that influence
Absolutely.
and using it wisely.
Yes. And that's what we're going to dive into in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore those responsibilities that come with that alpha status, the pitfalls to avoid, and the incredible potential that unfolds when you use your influence to lift other people up.
Love it. Can't wait. All right. So we're back, and I think it's time to tackle the big question, like what does it actually mean to be an alpha female in a world that's still kind of grappling with how to deal with powerful women?
Yeah.
We've decoded the types, we've analyzed the power plays,
Yeah.
we've even started to figure out where we fit into this whole alpha ecosystem.
Right.
But now I want to know, what's the playbook
Yeah.
for wielding that influence for good? How do we actually do this?
It's a great question, and it's a question that goes beyond just identifying those leadership qualities, right?
Right.
It's about recognizing that with that alpha status, there's a responsibility that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a title, it's like a platform.
Right.
And like any platform, it can be used to amplify good things or, well, not so good things.
Yeah. I mean, it's not enough to just be the alpha.
Right.
You got to be the right kind of alpha,
Totally.
with great power comes great responsibility. I feel like Spider-Man's Uncle Ben was really onto something.
He was a wise man.
He was, but maybe with a little more style involved in this case,
Wants more flair.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how these sources
Yeah.
don't just describe the different types, but they also kind of give us a peek into what it takes to be an effective and an ethical leader.
Yes, absolutely. That's where it gets really juicy.
Okay, so break it down for me. What are those key ingredients
Okay.
to make sure your alpha power is used for good?
Well, one of the most important things, I think, is using your influence to empower others, not to diminish them.
Right.
We talked about those subtle power tactics, like the shunning game.
Mm-hmm.
A true alpha female understands that those tactics can be so damaging, and she uses her position to create an environment that's inclusive and supportive.
Right. It's like leading through inspiration rather than fear.
Yes.
One creates followers and one creates leaders.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And another essential ingredient is authenticity.
Yeah.
We've talked about this tightrope walk that alpha females often face,
Right.
trying to balance assertiveness with likability.
Right.
I think the key is finding that sweet spot where you can be both strong and compassionate, ambitious and approachable, all while staying true to yourself,
Right.
Because when you're trying to be someone you're not, people can sense it a mile away.
Yeah, they can totally smell it.
And that's when your influence starts to kind of,
Crumble.
yeah.
Exactly. It's you got to own your power, but don't let it own you,
Yes, lead with your true self.
Yeah, not who you think people want you to be.
Exactly. And that leads to another really important point. Self-awareness.
Okay.
An effective alpha female She's constantly checking her motives, asking herself, why am I doing this? Is this for the benefit of everyone, or is this, like, my ego talking?
Right. So even if you're at the top of your game, there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
Even alphas need to, like, keep leveling up.
For sure, 100%. And one of the best ways to do that is to surround yourself with diverse perspectives,
Right.
A true alpha, she's not threatened by strong, intelligent people. She seeks them out.
Yeah.
She understands that the best decisions are made when everyone has a voice at the table.
Yeah, it's not about building a fan club. It's about, like, a dream team.
Exactly.
I'm loving this alpha leadership playbook.
Good.
But I'm also curious, like, even with the best of intentions, I feel like we can still stumble, you know?
We do, yeah.
What are some of those pitfalls that even, like, well-meaning alphas can fall into?
One of the biggest ones is isolation.
Okay.
Remember those behind-the-curtain types we talked about? Sometimes when you're in a position of power, it's easy to kind of get caught up in your own world
Yeah.
and lose touch with the needs and perspectives of the people around you.
It's like you're in this echo chamber where everyone's just telling you what you want to hear.
Yes, exactly.
And then you make decisions that are not so good.
Totally.
Yeah. And another pitfall, I think, is complacency.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you've achieved a certain level of success, it's tempting to just like coast.
Coast, yeah.
But true alphas, they never stop learning and growing.
Never. They're always pushing themselves to be better.
Okay, so what about those external challenges? Like we've talked about the double standards that women face.
Yeah.
How do you navigate those obstacles without losing yourself in the process,
That's where resilience comes in.
Yeah.
Because, let's face it, being a powerful woman in a world that's still grappling with gender equality, it can be really tough.
Yeah, it is.
You're going to face criticism. You're going to encounter resistance. And, you're going to have moments where you want to just throw your hands up and say, forget it.
Yeah, for sure.
But the women who really make a difference, they're the ones who keep showing up, keep speaking their truth, keep fighting for what they believe in.
They've got that fire in them,
They do.
This just keeps them going.
That inner fire.
Yeah, and that fire is contagious.
It is. When you lead with authenticity and integrity and genuine desire to make a positive impact, it inspires other people to do the same.
So it's not just about changing the world. It's like changing the world through others.
It is, exactly.
It's a powerful legacy to leave behind.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean for our listeners, the ones who are out there navigating their own social landscapes, figuring out where they fit in, maybe even like discovering their own alpha potential?
It means that the world needs their unique voices, their perspectives, their leadership, whether they're leading a company, a movement, or just their own lives. These principles apply.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing your strengths, owning your power, and using it to create a world that's more just, more equitable, more compassionate.
Oh, I love that. What a great call to action. So as we wrap up our alpha female deep dive, my final thought is this. The world is full of challenges, but it's also full of opportunities to make a difference.
It is.
And the women who rise to the occasion, they're the ones who embrace their power. They lead with purpose, and they never stop believing in their ability to change the world. Go out there and be the alpha the world needs you to be.
Beautifully said. And remember, the journey of an alpha female, it's never really over.
Right.
It's about constant evolution, growth, and commitment to using your influence to create a brighter future for yourself and for everyone around you.
Okay, that is a wrap on our alpha female deep dive.
Yes.
We hope you learned something new, challenged some assumptions, and maybe even discovered a little alpha magic within yourself. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and keep diving deep.